Welcome to the Dear Mind Listen podcast. Today, we're taking a deep dive into some really relevant wisdom about finding inner freedom, especially, for navigating the real pressures, the stress, even addictive patterns that young people face today.
hmm
We're pulling insights from some pretty timeless teachings, specifically drawing from Vedanta philosophy and the wisdom of Swami Chinmayananda.
That's right.
Our mission, it's really to grab those practical, actionable nuggets from these sources that can genuinely help you find some steadiness when life feels, well, chaotic.
Exactly. And the core idea these sources present is it's almost radical in its simplicity. It's that true freedom isn't something you get from the outside world. It's actually already, well, it's your fundamental nature, your birthright as a human being.
Okay, let's unpack this a little. So we're talking about a kind of freedom that doesn't hinge on your circumstances changing, like getting the perfect grade or landing that job or things just finally, going your way.
Precisely.
It's an internal independence, like not needing the world to feel okay or complete.
That's it, exactly. And the sources contrast this with the person who doesn't grasp this inner freedom. They're described as being tossed back and forth by the problems of life. It's quite a vivid image, much like an abandoned boat in a stormy sea.
Wow. Think about that feeling.
Yeah.
Being constantly reactive, just overwhelmed by stress, always looking for something external to feel better.
That stormy sea perfectly captures that feeling, doesn't it? Of being controlled by events or those internal urges that so many people wrestle with daily.
It totally resonates, feeling like you're just being battered by waves you can't control. Now, these teachings use a powerful analogy, don't they, from Vedanta,
Mm-hmm.
comparing the world, or maybe our experience of it, to an ocean.
They do, yeah. Vedanta uses this image quite a lot. The surface of the ocean is all, waves and turbulence, constantly changing, unpredictable. That's like the fleeting things, the events, the experiences in our day-to-day lives.
Right, the ups and downs.
But the deep ocean, down below, it's profoundly calm, still. Utterly unaffected by whatever storm is raging on the surface.
And the problem comes, according to these teachings, when we live only on that surface, right? We identify completely with the waves, the momentary joy, the sudden sadness, the quick success, the temporary setback.
Exactly. We become, in a way, slaves to these changes. We end up chasing the high of a good wave or desperately trying to escape the crash of a bad one, constantly seeking validation or maybe temporary relief outside ourselves.
In things, or social media likes, maybe substances or habits that can become, well, addictive.
Because we're identifying with that constantly shifting surface. Yeah.
So the key insight then, the path that Swami Chimananda points to, is to shift that identification, change where we place our sense of self.
Yes. It's about learning to identify with the unchanging reality, that serene depth that's underneath all the surface activity. And what happens when you do that? The sources say you start to rise above the daily ups and downs. You discover lasting happiness.
And this is where the idea of mastering the mind comes in, isn't it? That sounds crucial.
Absolutely. An enlightened being in this tradition is described as someone who has gained mastery over his own mind. Now, this doesn't mean they don't feel emotions. They absolutely do. But, and this is key, they do not let them overpower him. It's a really important distinction. They have an emotion, but do not become the emotion.
Yeah.
He does not become emotional.
Right. So you feel anger,
Yeah.
maybe, but you aren't just consumed by anger.
Exactly. Or you experience a craving, but it doesn't automatically control your actions. You have a choice.
That is so key for anyone dealing with really intense feelings or urges. It sounds like regaining agency, not just being stuck in reaction mode.
Yeah.
And the source also breaks down our basic makeup, right, to explain how this mastery is even possible.
It does. It talks about us having a body, our senses and actions, a mind for emotions, and an intellect for thoughts and ideas. And all these are animated by what they call the life principle, that spark, that energy that makes us alive. But the source is clear. Using these tools, perceiving, feeling, thinking, that's not the problem itself.
The problem is getting totally caught up in our perceptions and actions, like maybe endless scrolling or constantly seeking external stuff.
Right. Or being overwhelmed by emotions, like intense sadness or anxiety.
Or being driven by those negative thoughts that just spiral.
Precisely. Feeling controlled by triggers or feelings or those thought loops. But the path to that true inner independence, Swami Chinmayananda teaches, is learning to stand apart from the influence of perceptions, emotions, thoughts.
That ability to stand apart. to observe maybe,
Right.
to not be automatically tossed by every single wave of feeling or thought.
Mm.
That's the freedom that is our heritage. It's not something outside us we have to earn or find. It's like an innate capability we can rediscover within ourselves.
It's really about accessing that deep, calm center inside, shifting our focus even just a little from that turbulent surface where we so often feel lost and kind of out of control.
Okay, so let's quickly summarize these really powerful insights we've pulled from the sources today. First, true freedom is an inner state. It's our heritage, not something dependent on external circumstances changing.
Right. And life's experiences are like the ocean's surface waves constantly changing,
Yeah.
but there's always a serene, unchanging depth within us.
Then gaining mastery over the mind means experiencing emotions and thoughts without being totally overpowered by them. You have an emotion, you don't become it.
Which is so liberating. And finally, this capacity to stand apart from these overwhelming influences isn't some superpower. It's our natural, independent state. We just need to reclaim it.
Yeah, it's a powerful call to look within for stability and peace.
It really offers a practical framework for navigating, the pressures of modern life, everything from everyday stress to more challenging patterns.
Definitely. And this leads us to a powerful question for you listening right now. If these teachings say that lasting happiness and freedom come from within, from not being enslaved to external changes and internal reactions, what's maybe one small step, just one thing you can try today to start shifting your focus, even just a little bit, from that sometimes turbulent surface to that serene depth within yourself. See you next time with another insight into an interesting topic.